Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. Hopefully you can all see my screen now. And today, super excited to have you here. We are talking to Sean Zinmeister from Infer. Hey Sean, how's it going?
Yeah, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I just saw you were on mute. I was like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna remember to unmute himself.
That's just in
Uh,
case my dog makes a cameo appearance.
Oh, okay. That's cool. At least now we'll know. We'll know. I'll let you guys get to know Sean a little bit more in a second. I'm going to go through a little housekeeping as usual before we officially pass things over. So we always get the question, are you going to send the recording? Absolutely, we will be sending you the recording. I know Sean's got a lot of really great insights to go through, so you'll have it in your inbox within the next day or so. And we will also be taking questions. So make sure that you put your questions into the chat box as we go so that you don't forget what they are. And we'll circle back at the end and make sure we catch all of those questions. And of course, if you guys are on Twitter, make sure you join in and use hashtag Uber webinar. So as soon as Sean starts dropping those big knowledge bombs, grab a screenshot, tweet it out, hashtag Uber webinar. You can also mention at Uberflip at Infer Inc. Because we'll have people on social as well. And the last thing that I'll take you guys through, and then we'll jump into the webinar itself, is sticking around for a demo. So usually at the end of these webinars, I'll always give you guys a sneak peek at what Uberflip looks like. We have a lot of people that attend our webinars, read our content, but they don't actually know what we do. So if you're curious about what we do, definitely stick around at the end. We'll be doing that after the questions. Now, one of the things that we have been talking about a lot on our content team was really around how do we make content better. And one of the things that we've been talking about is really around predictive analytics. And if you guys have been sort of in the marketing technology space for a while, you know it's been a really hot topic for a lot of reasons. And we really wanted to understand how to use predictive analytics in order to make content better, in order to make our jobs as content marketers more impactful across the whole organization. So obviously, we talked to the experts, Sean included, which I'll introduce you to again in just a second here. But what are some of the indicators that we're seeing that really emphasize the need for getting smarter about content? Well, let's take a look at a few of these stats. So BuzzSumo, who we actually had on the podcast a few weeks ago, if you want to head over to hub.uberflip.com, you can actually find the recording there. They tell us that 50% of content gets 8 shares or less. 50% of content across the interwebs, that's a lot of content, gets less than 8 shares. 60 to 70% of content, B2B content specifically, goes unused. That's from Serious Decisions. And 90% of content is ignored by your B2B sales team because in many cases, it's not necessarily the right content that they need. So we're creating all this content, we're kind of killing ourselves creating all this content, but how do we actually execute in a way that's going to take these numbers and it's going to actually move them in the direction that we want to see? Well, this is where predictive analytics comes in for B2B marketers. So this is going to help us gather more actionable data, improve our positioning and our alignment when it comes to the content we're creating for specific audiences, and also help accelerate lead nurturing and sales. So that's really what brought us to reaching out to the guys at Infer. So Sean and I have had a couple of conversations around content, and really love what these guys are doing and really think that they have a lot to school us on. So Sean, I'm going to pass presenter mode over to you,
All right,
and you can take the ball from here and get rolling.
excellent. Just give me a quick
Perfect.
comment. All right.
Great.
Well, thank you, Hannah, for such a nice introduction. And once again, guys, for you who do not know me, my name is Sean Zinsmeister. I help lead product marketing over at Infer. For those who know what it's like to be in the shoes of a product marketer, you know that content is just flows in the DNA of what we do day in and day out, whether that's through sales enablement, thought leadership, PR, things like that. Being able to, take something very complicated, craft that message, and send it to the market. So this is definitely a topic I'm very passionate about. I've been in startups since I pretty much began my career. Previously, before I joined Infer, I was an Infer customer over at Nitro, where I built and led their marketing operations team for a few years. I call myself a musician-born marketer. I'm not sure what a traditional marketing background looks like these days. Mine was actually studying music composition and theory with a career in sound design before I really got into marketing systems as my sort of natural hybrid. I've told Hannah before, big fan of podcasts, as well as a constant paleo chef in my household. I was pleased in 2013 working at Nitro, running the ops team, to be an award winner of one of their marquees for most creative campaign. So now that you know a little bit about me, let me set the stage and talk about, so what is this thing called predictive analytics? It's great that we always have this way of building up these really buzzy, very jargony vocabulary words. And what I really like to do is break things down into sort of three parts and look at this in a non-scary, complicated way, and thinking about what this actually is. So you've heard machine learning. This is the idea of taking a historical analysis. And many times, this is your system of record data, your customer data, and being able to build what we call sort of backtesting models, doing a historical analysis, then marrying that with thousands of external data points from the web. This can be things gathered by crawlers, and we'll go under the hood a little bit in just a few. And then finally, the end goal is to build what we call actionable intelligence. Now, the reason that I like calling out actionable intelligence is because there's a really important dichotomy that exists between business intelligence, BI tools, right? So these are the great tools like the Domos and Tableaus of this world, and even things that you build in Excel yourself, where you are being able to build wonderful visuals to gain transparency into your data. But it's still looking at things at the surface level. These are vanity metrics that you're looking at, and while they can provide important insights, the big difference between predictive analytics and what you might find in BI tools is the idea that predictive analytics gives you the insight to say, this is what to do next. And that's what we call sort of actionable intelligence. And some of the keywords, while they do take on a bit of a different flavor for each sort of nomenclature, AI, machine learning, data science, predictive analytics, they're all really talking about the same idea. It's the idea of taking all these disparate data sets, being able to roll them together into something that's meaningful for your sales and marketing team, putting it into a language that you can understand. And many times, this is a predictive score or a profile and something like that. So let's go a little bit deeper, and I wanted to walk you guys through step by step about just how a typical predictive model is built. Now, before we even jump into it, there are two very different types of predictive models you should probably understand. Today, we're really going to talk about fit models versus behavior models. And the big difference here is fit models are mostly based upon static data sets. And we'll talk a little bit about the types of data that goes into them, versus behavior models that are mostly made up of engagement data. This is where you're being able to crack open your Marketo or your Pardot or your HubSpot or your Eloqua systems, your Google Analytics, and pull all of that rich engagement data and be able to build a predictive model that can actually tell you when somebody's in market and ready to convert. It's looking at buying propensity. The big difference between fit and behavior is the variable of time. And this makes sense because engagement data for behavior models, they go on into, it's a full activity spectrum, right? It goes on into perpetuity, versus fit data, which for the most part is fairly static. So just an important, understanding to know the difference between the two. And today we're mostly going to be talking about fit. Behavior is probably a whole nother topic for a webinar. It's huge intersections with content marketing. Really, really exciting breakthroughs being made on that side. But today we're really going to be talking about fit. So let's break it down. When you go about building a personalized model using machine learning, again, we talked about fit models, behavior models. There's also something called a usage model too. A lot of the SaaS companies that want to build predictive models on how users are using their products, right? What's going on inside? Can we model that data into actionable intelligence for our sales and marketing teams to make use of? Or can we use that data as a predictive signal And we'll talk a little bit about what that means as we go. But again, you're starting with your existing customer data, used with pre-built connectors that you port in from your CRM, your systems of record, I like to call them, your sales automation, your marketing automation. You're doing all the historical analysis. Again, you're adding, with this case, would be external signals, thousands of data points from the web. This could be like public filings, data partnerships, proprietary web crawlers, those types of examples. And when you start with your existing data, this is really, really important to understand. You're looking for positive signals. So a lot of people understand it's like, wow, like my data is really dirty, or it's not big enough, or these are the types of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that people think about whether or not they're a good fit for predictive analytics. The idea is you want to have a statistically significant amount of wins and losses. It's not even about the granularity of the data. You can build predictive models off of dirty data. Everybody's data could use some upgrade in the hygiene area. It's usually very common for what you see. But as long as you have a significant amount of wins and losses, and usually that can be between 200 and 800 is a decent rule of thumb. And you're going to take those and then add thousands of signals we talked about, mined from the web, sometimes third-party data sources as well. Those sort of signals from external could be things like, employee count. Do you sell globally? What was the first trademark? This is where we talk about machine learning. We're able to grok with machines far more information than a human possibly could. And what you're doing is determining what signals are predictive, and you're looking for patterns. The example that I always like to give here is, if we go back to the days of like old world explorers looking up at, unclustered star constellations, what we saw was just sort of a mess of stars in the sky. But as the technology got better and better and better, the patterns start to emerge, and that was where things like, the Big Dipper came in. So take that idea and kind of apply it to what you're looking at with a predictive model when you're incorporating your data, and it really is the same kind of idea. And at the end, you have yourself a predictive model, and many times that's showcased as a score that appears in your CRM or your marketing automation. And the big other question that people always have is like, okay, well, I have a general understanding of predictive analytics. I might be using other analytics as well, but like, where does this fit into my stack? Right? Everybody's always thinking about like how to make their stack, and the thing that I care most about is like, what does the signal flow look like in your stack? And if we add like our friends from Uberflip, like our content system of record, we have Marketo as our engagement platform, or Salesforce as our sort of CRM. Predictive really plays with all of these things to make sure that as you are generating inquiries, inbound leads with your content, you are able to actually understand which of those leads are most likely to convert. I say most likely to convert because when you're building a predictive model, the business usually defines what the conversion point is. That could be a lead to an opportunity. That could be a lead to closed one. It really depends on the workflow and environments of your business. But this is just a great example of like how some businesses can choose to set up their stack as it pertains to content marketing. And on that, to set up the sort of topic du jour that we're here for, what are the content marketing challenges that we have today, and why is predictive analytics even relevant to helping solve some of these challenges? Well, we have drivers as we've continued to build our businesses and content marketing has become really hot. We've introduced these types of passive marketing channels to generate lots of inquiries. We've lowered the gate to make the content easier to access than, say, a harder offer like a request a demo or a contact me, right? Those are very, very sales-heavy, sales-oriented offers versus demos, ebooks, white papers, a bit more research-based, a bit more earlier on in the sales process. But what we've done is we started filling our funnels with all of these sort of inquiries from content marketing, and what we want to try to figure out is like, who are the best prospects coming through the funnel? And it's really finding the gold that is in your content marketing programs. You're generating a high volume of inquiries. I want to be able to focus on the leads, contacts, opportunities, or accounts. Depending on how your business looks, you can build a predictive model on any of these. You want to be able to automatically research all those prospects and identify the ones in your content marketing programs that sales should be following up with first, or should be pushed to other programs based upon their level of, most likely to convert. So to put this sort of into perspective, I kind of built 3 real-world examples about how predictive analytics and content marketing can be used together. And while there's a lot of examples you can use from the sales side with prioritization and filtering, these are actually more towards the marketing use case. So starting with your generic ebook program, we spend a lot of time crafting and designing these great pieces of collateral to tell our story and to really have the market understand our product and some of the use cases and value. And what we're left with today is really a raw number, and many times that is an inquiry or a download count. So let's pretend for this example, these are all gated ebooks, and we're left to sit here and look at these numbers and say, oh, well, the Nurture ebook must have been the favorite of our audience because 300 people downloaded it. Well, the thing is that while the volume was highest with the Nurture playbook, it doesn't necessarily mean it was the best at driving the best types of prospects for our business. And when you apply predictive analytics, almost a predictive scan, if you will, what we start to see is that of those 300, really only 5% A and B leads were good leads. And a majority of the people that downloaded, it's true, they might be interested in the content, and we probably won't throw away those leads, but we might choose to put, people who downloaded the Nurture playbook, given the high amount of C's and D's, into maybe a long drip Nurture program where we can continue to educate and have them engaged with our brand. So that's just an idea of how, again, you're using what the feedback mechanism from predictive to build actionable intelligence. Like this, drove a high volume of leads. Not all these people are really the best fit for our product, so we're going to move them to a different program, or perhaps if they're really poor, some D leads may be very, very highly unlikely to convert. We may even choose to purge those from our database, and that even itself, keeping and maintaining database health, is a really, really great byproduct and value of applying predictive analytics to your stack. Moving on with this, we see that, wow, so look, while the behavior scoring, and I know it's convenient for this example to make my point, but stick with me, the A and B leads almost made about 40%. So while the total volume of downloads or inquiries generated by the behavior scoring book, this one seems to have attracted the buyers that are most likely to convert, the best types of good leads, while our sort of social tables case study kind of fell somewhere in the middle. Now, what does this say to me? Well, then it says to me, from a marketing standpoint, I need to find out how to double my investment, or how do I put more chips down on the behavior scoring book. Maybe this is one that I fuel with some paid social, or some we can investigate different types of campaigns to expand the reach of this content. And maybe we don't put as much into the Nurture playbook. We have it as a great inbound asset and for sales enablement, but it's less likely to attract the best types of prospects. So let's take this. Ebooks, very familiar, but what about things like video marketing? So this is a really interesting kind of example, and I've seen this case study especially played out with customers, like we have our friends at HubSpot have run this a few times. Especially this works if you're using something like a Wistia or a Vidyard, where you're able to use that sort of turnstile marketing combined with your videos. In this particular example, let's look at 3 types of videos that we might have on our website. So one is very product-oriented, another is very human-centric, very people-oriented, and the third, a cool animation that we did that tells the story of our product or our company. So from these, again, we can see the total volumes. The animation video really drove a lot of inbound inquiries, about 1,000. While the product video, we're looking at, well, that not as much of the heavy inquiries. So based upon these numbers, we might say, well, the animation is the way to go. Let's make sure that this takes center stage on our website. Maybe we invest in more content production around these types of videos, etc. Again, when you look at things through a predictive lens, we start to see a bit of a different story, where actually 20% from the product video themselves drove A's and B's, while really only 5% were good leads coming from the animation video, while the people video kind of still somewhere in the middle. again, what this says to me is you can start to now make intelligent decisions around your content, maybe not just into what videos to produce, but how could we take this further? Our audience is really interested in product videos. Maybe we don't have enough of them. Maybe we can find different ways to repackage them and share them with our community. Maybe we need to just make more of them. This would be a way that you can sort of understanding, opportunity cost is something that's so important to CMOs these days, the fear of focusing on the wrong thing. And content projects, while there's a lot of wonderful tools out there that make that help the content creation process become a little bit less hard on your team, it's still, you want to make sure that you're putting your energy in the things that are going to drive the most value for your business. And that's something that predictive analytics can help you answer without having to go through a full sales cycle. Imagine if your sales cycle, for example, is 90 days. Predictive can give you sort of instant feedback to understand what's working and what, you can make those decisions with greater confidence a lot faster than, waiting to see what falls out the bottom of the funnel. So for the final example, I actually want to offer something from a use case from another customer of ours. We got a chance to present this with my friend Adam Von Rijn, VP of Growth Marketing over at Insight Squared. We got a chance to present this at Marketo Summit this year. And Adam has a really, really great way of sort of using what I call a test and invest strategy as it comes to this example around content syndication. So measuring campaign effectiveness using predictive for the example of content syndication. And what he does is he sort of lines up two different campaigns, again, the costs being reasonably the same, looking at the leads numbers, and this is what we're left with. And the story that gets told is, well, campaign one appears to have, best under cost per lead metrics versus campaign two that was lower in volume, same cost, but a little bit higher. And when we start to break things down, we now start to understand, when we look at our model, that A's leads were worth almost 3 times as much as B leads. And that's something really important when you're looking at these content syndication channels, to be like, well, we have to then be able to focus on channels and spend our money on channels that are going to drive more A leads because they convert 3x above B leads. And that's a really, really valuable piece of information to have, especially when you're doing budget planning for the year. You can also be able to eliminate content syndication vendors that might not be a good fit. It's not that they're bad vendors, it just might be that the audience they reach is not a great match for your investment. And when we sort of break the campaigns down even further, looking at the A's, B's, and C's, we actually see that campaign 2 wins on quality of weighted cost. So again, predictive analytics, even when you're talking about paid media channels versus inbound, you can see that just focusing on the volume of sort of top of the funnel inquiries can be a bit deceiving, while predictive analytics lets you really sort of hone in on the quality of the prospects that are going to be meaningful, especially in terms of telling the story of which of those MQLs are most likely to convert for your programs. And with that, I hope that we were able to offer some high-level overview of kind of what predictive is, how the models work, and some strategies that you can use and start to think about for how you can squeeze more value out of your content marketing programs. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have. You can find me with Google, Sean Zinsmeister. I've done a pretty decent job owning that SEO over the years. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at @szinsmeister as well. And I think, Hannah, I'll turn it over to you. And if we have any great questions from the audience, I'm happy to answer anything that people are interested in.
Yeah, we've definitely had a few questions roll in, and just before I get right into them, don't forget, guys, if you do have any questions, type them into the chat box on the side. And I guess the first one we're gonna jump into from Italia, I believe. I apologize if I am totally murdering your name. Hopefully that's close. How do you suggest calculating the percentage for A, B, C, D? Is it based on a product like Wistia to figure out who the people viewing / downloading are? Go for it.
Yeah. So the only reason to use, and it's good to understand where the combinations of these technologies kind of intersect. The problem with using just like YouTube, is you do need to make somebody become a known to your database, right? So the good
Mhm.
thing about Wistia and the Vidyards of this world and other products like that is that they offer those turnstile gated mechanisms for you to capture email addresses. As long as you're able to capture an email address from those systems, most of those are integrated with either Salesforce or Marketo, and they'll hit your predictive model before being posted into those systems. So you're sort of using video in that case as kind of a gate for them to get into your database, and then you can sort of score them using your predictive model. So hopefully that answers the question there.
Yeah, no, I think that that makes a lot of sense. So she says yes, thank you, as she's typing us back. So that's exactly what she was looking for. So next question from Leslie. What is best practices for adding external data in conjunction with internal data for original scoring on one deals, it looks like, and how many total fields is optimal when working the model? Very specific questions.
Yeah. Wow. That is a really good question. Let me break it down a little bit. Um, One thing I think to understand, and I'm going to steal an analogy, one of the lead data scientists over at Quora, actually, I think he uses this. It's important when thinking about adding signals that more signals don't necessarily mean a stronger model.
Mm-hmm.
And think about if he uses this analogy about listening to an orchestra, you don't want to hear the shuffling of the feet of the audience. You want to hear the music, shine through as clean as possible. All of that extra noise, those signals, while apparent, are not necessarily meaningful for, in this case, a predictive model. In that analogy's case, a symphony. And I think that like when you look at external data sources, it really, when you go through a model build process, I think that you will learn a lot about what is a meaningful signal to your business. It's not uncommon to go through a model build process, whether it's something that you're taking on yourself or you're working with a vendor, to actually bubble up signals that you had no idea were actually meaningful to your business. Sometimes they can have direct meaning. Sometimes they can be indicative. An indicative signal might be like if I worked for a banking company and we built a predictive model that said, hey, Sean, you guys sell really well into businesses that use Eloqua. Well, we sell, banking software. So, we're not really going to personalize our comms or content around Eloqua because we don't have any direct hooks into it.
Mm-hmm.
However, their business using Eloqua is indicative of a few things. One, the technical acumen of the buyer. Oh, sorry. um, the technical acumen of the
Was that your
buyer.
dog jumping in?
That was, yes, she's going to protect me against the Amazon deliverer, probably. But to double back, if they are using Eloqua, it could be indicative of the level of technical acumen. It could also be indicative of budget as well. Eloqua is not a cheap system, not something you find in the SMB world. That more is indicative of things that are in the mid-market and enterprise realm. That's a very useful signal, however, that's good for targeting and segmentation. That is predictive for your business, and it's just a different way to sort of look at those types of signals. So I think we want to be careful about sort of pouring on as much external signals as we can. We have a pretty rigorous data testing system that we go through. We look at a lot of different data that we can try to bring into our model. And there are many times that we'll evaluate a data set and the data is simply not valuable. We can't make a feature out of it. And I think that the data gold rush of buying as much data as you possibly can be dangerous because you want to, and the other thing is to understand what you're going to do with it. It doesn't even necessarily need to be, oh, maybe this will be, add to the predictive power of a model. Many businesses get into the habit of acquiring data, and have no idea what to do with it. They have no idea how to operationalize that data to drive value for your business. So I think it's just something to take a look at that's very relative to the types of data sets that you're evaluating. And if you're working with a vendor, they'll be able to help guide you or your internal team to understand, what are the meaningful data sources as it pertains to your business. I have a funny expression that's, every business is a snowflake, and they really are all different. There are custom models that are just slightly different or radically different depending on their environment, as well as your workflows as well. And I think that's something that's really important to understand when you're going about sort of this type, embarking on a predictive journey, that you're going to want to do something that's going to be meaningful for your business that you can trust and understand.
I love that you said that the data needs to be actionable and they need to learn how to operationalize it. It reminds me of something Andy Crestodina, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he talks a lot about content and analytics and content
Mm-hmm.
marketing in specific. And I think he got this from somebody else, but he basically said, like, you can't just have like a data puke. you need you need actual insights. And in a lot of cases, like the data puke is the numbers and the charts and the graphs, and the insights are like words on a piece of paper where you're
Sure.
actually analyzing and interpreting and operationalizing the data. So I think that that's a really important point. Leslie, who actually asked the question, also agrees. She says keep it manageable and useful. Yes, Leslie, I completely agree. So another question around just sort of how other elements of kind of predictive fit into that. So you focused a lot on fit today.
Mm-hmm.
Would love for you to talk a little bit about the behavioral side of it.
Yeah.
Can you riff on that a bit?
Yeah, I would love to. Behavior is something that we're seeing a lot of really, really exciting breakthroughs in right now. And I think if you dial back to sort of the traditional 4x4 lead scoring grid, this is like the serious decisions best practices and, what a lot of the consultants were pitching during the big when traditional lead scoring, and still is, very important, especially during the rollout of marketing automation. The big thing to really understand is why fit and behavior have always been on different sides of that grid. So if you looked at a traditional 4x4, you'd see fit in your vertical column, and in the horizontal column, you see behavior. And most of the time, behavior is 1 through 4, 1 being the highest for buying propensity, 4 being the least, and fit being sort of A through D. There are different ways that you can classify um, those types of labels, but that's the most common in the market. The big thing, and I kind of touched on this before, is that the two data sets are very, very different. And they're very different because of the variable of time. What happens sometimes with models that are being built and deployed that can be very, very misleading for a business is to combine the two data sets together. Combining a static data set with something that is meant to be more volatile, like behavior, that introduces things like decay, right? The rise and fall of engagement data, the understanding of different spikes. You are normalizing that data to the point where there's an incredible amount of information loss, and flattening that data rather into one single model. You'll lose a lot of clues about what's happening with your engagement data, and it potentially can be a red herring for some of the decisions that you're making. Where I think behavior data is incredibly interesting, and I think we're starting to see what these high fidelity models can start to, the power of what they can start to do, especially taking the full spectrum of activity data out of your marketing automation system versus just looking at a manual-based, gut-based point system that exists today. Again, give this one to the machines where they're able to look at far more data points in a full sort of spectrum of time that you just are not able to contain from a human element. Where I think the use cases are starting to bubble up for behavior are, one, certainly there is a level of using behavioral scoring and behavioral models in addition to fit as a second layer for what goes into an MQL. That's something that we're starting to see businesses take advantage of. I think that that's an entry-level use case. Some businesses that have such turbulent tops of funnel, using a fit score is not enough. My previous company, Nitro, they were generating hundreds of thousands of trials a month. And that's a great champagne problem to have, but can be super rough on your system as well. But just using a fit model in that case still left you with thousands and thousands of A's. And you really need to be able to have a second layer to make sure that, okay, sales wants to not only follow up with those prospects or accounts that are the best fit, but the ones that are showing the highest buying propensity as well, the ones that are sort of in market, ready to buy. Behavioral models at the core are trying to make a prediction based upon a cohort of time. So, say within 3 weeks, they want to know like when this person is most likely to convert. And that's where you start to get into the ideas, right time, right message, and sales efficiency and things like that. Other use cases for behavior, I think we could talk all day about the value of nurture databases. We have an expression at Infer that nurture is another word for neglect. A lot of these big nurture databases are just sitting on gold mines of great prospects that are just not receiving your communications. An example of where behavior also comes into play is that you might have zombie prospects sitting in your database that all of a sudden are, they've been dead for 6 months, but all of a sudden they light up and they're showing an incredible amount of behavior. And what that could say to me is, well, this person might be engaged in a research project where this account is now starting to undergo an initiative to bring on, our product. And we want to make sure that we are jumping on these guys. A lot of businesses set up what they call dog piles or up for grab queues within nurture databases that when behavior lights up prospects and they're showing a lot of buying propensity, sales can then go into those queues and grab them as well. I think the final use case that makes behavioral data super interesting to me, and this is where I don't think we can get out of a webinar without talking about ABM these days, it would seem, but with the rise of account-based marketing, I think the biggest...
John, you promised me no ABM. No,
I know, I did promise you, but I'm going to squeeze it in. For those, account-based marketing has been that is the topic du jour on everybody's mind right now. A lot of confusion around it, but I do think one of the big problems that people are facing is, how do I measure the effectiveness of my ABM programs? Right? So we talked about measuring the effectiveness of our marketing programs, but ABM takes on a bit of a different style. Like, how do we do that? And the main metric that people are after is pipeline acceleration. Marketers want to be able to answer the question, are my marketing programs generating, are we speeding up the pipeline? Is the air cover we're providing sales actually doing anything? Behavior data can definitely give us insight into this for us to understand and answer the question, one, which of my accounts are showing the highest level of buying propensity? Dig a level down, within the buying center of those accounts, are we getting engagement from the right types of buyers? It's one thing to say that, the Aflac account is the highest engaged buying propensity, but if it's all from admins or sort of lower tier job roles, we may need to adjust our marketing programs to target at the C level if that's the buyer persona that we really care about. And those types of insights can be really, really valuable for you to redirect marketing efforts and understand where to place your bets in terms of ABM. It also can help identify gaps where if you've generated a target account list with your sales team and they say, listen, we really, really want to go after the Lenovo account or whatever enterprise that you're after, and we're just not seeing enough engagement, marketing then knows, okay, this quarter we really need to push a big campaign and content specific to this account because we're not reaching them through our current programs. Behavior data can sort of offer some really interesting clues and insights to that. So both understanding behavior at the leads level and at the account level as well.
Okay, I think there is a ton of good stuff in there. I want to be cognizant of time, so we will take one more question from Mariana. She wants to know what kind of behavior data you use and how you get it. Not sure if you can pull the curtain back a little bit and sneak peek.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing with behavior data is there's two types to understand. One is internal data, and the other is, which I call first-party behavior data, and the other is third-party behavior data. First-party behavior data is what we use today. A lot of the behavior data that we're building for businesses today is taken from their Marketo systems and Google Analytics. So you're looking at everything from web behavior to email engagement and things like that, things that are recorded. And keep in mind, you're looking at a full historical analysis of activity data that is in your system, versus, say, just looking at a starting point from whence we began. That's first-party data. That's all behavior data that exists within your ecosystem. It's stuff that you own, right? It's your Google Analytics. It's your Marketo platform. They're within your stack. Those predictive models that are built solely today, and they're the ones that we build, are based upon first-party behavior data because the coverage is really high. You have a really high volume of behavior data to analyze and build those predictions. You've also heard something in the market probably called intent data or interest data, and this is third-party behavior data. This is, data happening on third-party publishing sites like Forbes or, name your favorite publisher. We don't use these types of behavior data in models today because while I think the idea of third-party intent data is a really exciting frontier, and I think that we've just sort of, it's been, we're just seeing the beginning stages of what could become and how marketers can use and operationalize third-party intent data.
Mm-hmm.
We have found in a lot of the research and development we've done on the infer side that these are not very useful for predictive models. And part of the reason is because the coverage is so low. If you think about your business, the way that third-party intent data is gathered today on these websites, you're looking at a list of topics or interests, something similar to like what you might find as you build out a targeting for like a Google display network campaign, right? You're looking at interests and different topics that pertain to your business, and then you slim that down even further to the ones that match the accounts that you care about. The numbers start to dwindle down pretty low, and we just haven't seen that data become valuable from a predictive standpoint. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not valuable to marketers in general. I think that the use cases are still fairly nascent. I think that there's some interesting ideas around how I could use third-party intent data to, say, personalize my email marketing or perhaps build content. If I knew what topics that you were searching for, I could certainly use that as clues to build my content strategy. I think we just haven't seen enough of those types of use cases, and it still lives in the theoretical layer today. But I think that as innovation continues to move forward and this becomes an interesting topic for marketers and sales professionals to pursue, I have no doubt that we'll see sort of stronger and more tangible success stories come out of it. So hopefully that kind of helps answer the question around behavior.
Awesome. That was a fantastic answer. Sean, we're going to wrap things up, my friend. Thank
Cool.
you very much for doing this. As mentioned, guys, we will definitely be sending the recording. So keep an eye on your inbox. I know we went through a lot of stuff today, but I think, Sean, you did a really good job of simplifying it enough to make it digestible, but not oversimplifying it. So thank you for that.
Best compliment you could have given me. Thanks.
Fantastic, fantastic. Really appreciate it. So listen, we'll have to have you back on and maybe we can dig into sort of the behavioral models or the usage models a little bit more for people.
Wonderful. That would be great. Thanks so much for having me, Hannah. I really had fun.
Thanks, Sean. Really appreciate it. For everybody else that's still hanging out, stick around. I am, as promised, going to give you guys a little demo of Uberflip and show you how we can help with your content marketing efforts. So hopefully everybody can see my screen right now. And before I kind of launch into the demo, just to set a little bit of context around kind of what we focus on and what it is that we do, we're really all about helping you create, manage, and optimize content experiences. And when I say content experience, I don't just mean your resource center or your blog, even though we can help with that. I mean experiences at every stage of the buyer journey. So how Uberflip works is really coming together and bringing all of your content, aggregating it into the Uberflip platform. So I'm talking blogs, social media, ebooks, white papers, videos, all of that great content that your team has been tirelessly producing. And once you've got it in Uberflip, then you can slice and dice it, mix and match it, and create really tailored experiences for specific buyer personas around specific topics. You can even create an experience for a particular prospect or for an account if you are doing some ABM. The beauty about these experiences is that you can then take them and really optimize them for lead generation, connect them with your marketing automation tools so you have full visibility into who's filling out forms on those experiences. And then, of course, we give you the data around being able to measure your performance. But not only can you dig into sort of Uberflip metrics, we also integrate with marketing automation. So you've got all of that data and consumption behavior right in your marketing automation tool. So what does that all look like? Well, I'm going to get a little bit meta on you, and I'm going to show you how Uberflip uses Uberflip. So this is our own Uberflip hub. So obviously fully branded to us, but if you're coming in and you're using Uberflip, it would be completely branded and customized to your company and your brand. And this is what we call our content hub. And really, this is comparable to somebody's resource center on their website. As I scroll down, you can see that right now this is the latest feed of all of my content. So I've got blog articles, I've got ebooks, I've even got social media pulling in here. And not only do you see content, you also see these calls to action. And these calls to action were really put in by my marketing team. The beauty of Uberflip is it's all in the control of marketers. They were able to do this in the back end of Uberflip. So you can pull in a link call to action, you can put in that form call to action. And as I mentioned before, this actually connects with your marketing automation tool. So as soon as somebody fills this out, they click subscribe, all that data goes right to your marketing automation tool. And you can even put calls to action in at the item level. So when I drill down to a specific piece of content, in this case, it is an article written by Kelly, who's on our content team, around 7 useful Chrome extension for content marketers. And I've got that call to action placed there. So a lot of agility when it comes to sort of how you optimize that whole experience, where you put forms, where you put calls to action. Now, you'll notice that what I'm showing you right now is the latest feed of content, but the real magic comes when you start to create really custom streams of content. So you'll see this top menu. This was all done again by the marketing team. No need for a developer. They can add and remove from how they organize our content hub the way they want to. And you'll see here we've got, different resources. We've also organized our content by topic. But here's another interesting one thing we've done is we've organized our content by audience segment. So because we integrate with all of those marketing automation tools, we've actually created content experiences, specifically tailored streams for those tools. So you'll see here, I've created a stream for everything Marketo. And in this case, this content, I'm on a small screen, so I'll zoom back a little bit for you. This content is all related to marketing automation, Marketo users, how to use content to fuel marketing automation, all of those topics that are sort of in that sweet spot for us. Now, as I scroll down, you'll see that it's not only the content that's tailored, it's also the calls to action. So instead of that generic call to action that you saw when we were just sort of looking at the latest feed of content, now the call to action is much more targeted. Now my marketing team can tailor this message to this audience segment. Instead of saying, hey, want to check out Uberflip? Now we're saying, hey, do you want to see Uberflip and Marketo in action together? Way more targeted. And as marketers, you guys know, the more targeted your CTA, the better the conversion rate is going to be. Now, one other thing I want to show you guys here on the front end. Oh, and actually, incidentally, before I hop over there, this custom stream for this audience segment, this could be anything if you're a marketer. This could be a stream for a specific account. Instead of saying everything Marketo, maybe this is a stream for Marketo if I'm chasing them down as an account. And I've got different content in here and different calls to action. And I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like in a second, but these are the kinds of things we need to start to be able to do as marketers. Now, last little thing I'm going to show you here before I jump into the back end of Uberflip is how you can use Uberflip to actually gate content. So if you're doing B2B marketing, you are more than likely creating premium content in order to gather leads. It's one of the most effective things you can do, provided you've got really good content and a good experience. Now, this is a recording of a webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago with the folks from BuzzSumo, and you'll notice here that I've gated this with a very slick little form around that just sort of overlays on the actual recording itself. Now, we've had customers test this against a traditional landing page, and they actually saw this convert 250% higher, up to 250% higher. And I mean, there could be a lot of reasons for this, right? So you can kind of see the content right behind this form. It's a little bit of a teaser. It's kind of nice that way. And it feels like a quick, easy conversion so that you can actually get to that content right away. So this is just another tool in your arsenal. We use landing pages at Uberflip, but we also use these forums to gate some of our content depending on the context and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So what does Uberflip look like on the back end? Well, I don't want to dive too deep here, but we're just as concerned. Oh, apparently I have a meeting in a few minutes. There we go. We're just as concerned with your experience as a marketer as we are with the experience you're creating for your audience. So we want to make sure things are really easy for you to do. So when it comes to managing your content in Uberflip, it's really a matter of just clicking a couple of buttons and really creating that stream of custom content that you want. So you'll notice we pull in a lot of different types of content. So you can upload PDFs, pull in slide shares, you can pull in social media content, videos from several different hosting platforms. So you can use YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia, Vidyard, Brightcove, you name it, we got it. Pull in any blog articles. And then incidentally, once you pull in your blog article, you can continue to use whatever CMS you've been using to blog, or you can start actually blogging from within Uberflip because we do have that CMS capability. And for a lot of people, it's easier to just do everything in one spot. And then these are the custom streams that I mentioned to you before. So the beauty of the custom streams, and I'll show you an example of one, is that they can be as specific as you want them to be. So for example, we have a custom stream here that we created for a specific account we were going after. You'll see that it's much more targeted. We handpick the content, the description is tailored, and the call to action is actually from one of our sales reps. Right? So really cool way to sort of tailor content. Another way we can do that is we can actually create something called target streams, and this is specifically for sales reps when you're looking at sales enablement. And this lets reps come in and again, create that same sort of really targeted stream of content that they can send right to a prospect and really see how that content works out for them. And the beauty of this type of thing is, I don't have to necessarily manage it as a marketer, but I can tag specific content for my reps so they know what to use, or I can go in and create it for them depending on how much control you want on the marketing side. And when I look at this and I see how targeted it is, I can see right now that this particular prospect, they want to use Uberflip to power their resource center because John included this post. They also use Eloqua because we included a webinar around Eloqua hacks. I definitely know they use Eloqua because there's a video here about how to use Eloqua and Uberflip together. So it really kind of having the ability to slice and dice and tailor that entire experience, not just the content itself. We know you guys create great content, really about tailoring that entire experience. Last little bit I'm going to show you guys here is around the calls to action. I showed you what they look like on the front end of Uberflip. As I mentioned, that there are form call to actions, link call to actions. It's as simple as clicking one of these buttons, picking what you want to do, making sure you're integrated with one of these tools. You don't have to do it once, and then you just go through and customize the look and the feel and the message, and you're done. So a lot more flexibility on the B2B side. Now, if you have any questions about how Uberflip works, head over to uberflip.com, click on the request a demo link, and we will connect you with one of our content strategists. They will sit down, go through it with you, see what the best use case is for you specifically. And then two last things I want to mention. So first of all, if you haven't heard yet, we are having our own conference. We're going to be hosting a conference in Toronto, August 24th and 25th. Beautiful time to be in Toronto. Toronto is great in the summer, and Canada gets cold in the winter, so we didn't want to do that to you guys. Focus is going to be on around B2B content and demand generation. So we really hope to see you guys out there. Head over to uberflip.com/experience. You can find out all about the amazing speakers that we have headlining. We've got a couple of them listed right now, like Jay Baer, Lee Oden, of course, our own CEO, Job Schwartz, Pat Spenner. But make sure that you head over there now because it is going to be a small conference. We're expecting it to fill up pretty quickly, so make sure you've got your tickets. And last but not least, this link is in the chat box, guys. So if you want to jump into our webinar next week, we'll be doing that with Ion Interactive. Going to be joining Anna Talarico. I always forget how to pronounce her last name. And we're going to be talking about how content marketing company does content marketing. So really excited just to share our process, tips, hints, how you guys can create better content faster by kind of taking some of the stuff that we've learned over the years. All right, that's it for me, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.